Well, good morning, and welcome to worship at St. Andrew's on this beautiful Sunday, September 26th. We're so glad you're here. Welcome. And glad that folks who are watching online will be catching us later today. Welcome to you as well. Still stage 3, still protocols. So thank you, folks, for calling in and reserving your seats. That's so helpful for us. Thank you for wearing your masks and wearing them correctly and staying socially distanced. I know that's so hard. That's the hardest part of being at the door, because when people arrive, because I just want to hug everybody so badly. And so I'm afraid the protocol police are going to haul me away at some point for inappropriate hugging. So anyway, thank you for that, and for staying in your seat at the end of the service until an usher escorts you out. I would like to draw your attention to the Together sheet this morning. Lots of great information there. Thank you, Derek. Including a lovely message from Kay and Teresa, who are actually here today. I'm so happy that you're here on your last Sunday in North Bay. And some fundraisers. Betty Hurley has a fundraiser. We've got Turkey Fest soup mix back. But a couple of announcements of things that are time sensitive. And one very important one is the Transitional team Congregational meeting this coming Thursday night at 7 o'clock on Zoom. So this is a follow-up from some lunchtime Zooms that were happening back in the spring. And the transition team has been working very hard to incorporate the responses they got in the spring and want to check back with folks. So please follow the meeting number and the password numbers that you're given and join in on Thursday evening at 7 o'clock. The other thing is that Stuart Bailey has organized an outdoor fall cleanup event for next Saturday morning, just tidying up around the property and, you know, getting the yard ready for winter. 9 o'clock on Saturday morning, meeting on the front lawn. And even if you only have an hour, that's great. It shouldn't take too long if lots of folks join in with that. So thanks for paying attention to those. I see many of you are wearing your orange today, and I'm grateful for that. As I'm sure our Indigenous friends across the country. We have in a moment, we have a wonderful, powerful video created by the Reverend Richard Bott, who is the moderator of the United Church of Canada, and we're going to be privileged to watch that. But our friend Peter Haddo, who is not with us this morning because he's preaching in Powassan, found online some lovely coloring pages put out by Every Child Matters. So they are on the table in the narthex. So if you would like to pick one up on your way out for a grandchild or even for yourself. Yes, Kim goes, yeah, there's some lovely pages there. So thank you to Peter for that. And I'm going to turn it over to Kim for the video.
Every September 30th, people of all ages across Canada wear orange shirts to remember and honor Indigenous children who were made to attend residential schools. Why orange? Because of Phyllis Jack Webstad, who on her first day at St. Joseph Mission Residential School wore an orange shirt that her grandmother had given her. It was immediately taken away by a teacher. And that marked the beginning of Phyllis's long separation from her family and community. A separation caused by the church and the federal government. We wear orange to remember those events, their ongoing impact, and to call our leaders to account for the ongoing inequalities Indigenous children face. This past summer, we saw waves of orange shirts as First Nation communities shared with the rest of Canada the truth that they had always known, that there are children buried in unmarked graves on the sites of residential schools. These communities are now seeking to honor the missing children. This Orange Shirt Day is also the first observance of a National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. For settler Christians in particular, this is a time when we can reflect on our role in colonialism and the residential school system, and our ongoing responsibility to make reparation. Every child matters on Orange Shirt Day and every day. May we never forget that. Will you pray with me? Creator God, see the shirts we're wearing this day. Their orange color bright and alive. Worn in remembrance of the Indigenous children taken from their families and communities. Worn in remembrance of what they experienced at Canada's residential schools. Worn in remembrance of the children who returned, changed. And the children who never returned, who died far away from their families. May the wearing be an act of honoring. May the wearing be an act of remembering. May the wearing be a call to keep challenging ourselves and our leaders, that we might find ways of reparation and live in right relations. We ask this in your name and in your love. Amen.
We acknowledge this morning that we are privileged to worship on the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe people of the Nipissing First Nation. We are indebted to them for their faithful stewardship of these lands. We light this candle to represent the Spirit among us. And this candle, as our commitment to work toward true reconciliation and right relations with our Indigenous sisters and brothers. Please join me in the call to worship as it is printed in your order of service. On this autumn day, with the arching vault of heaven soaring over our own human-designed roof, and the huge round world of rock turning slowly beneath our feet, carrying the foundations on which we stand, we gather here, somewhat amazed, for we live and breathe in your wildly abundant world that is constantly creating and recreating in ways we can barely understand. Creator of us all, thank you for life, Thank you for love. Thank you for all the richness in your amazing world, so full of challenges, so full of joys. Come join us to celebrate this world you have made. Our opening hymn is number 296 in Voices United. This is God's wondrous world. Please join me in our gathering prayer and in the Lord's Prayer, which will be sung to the traditional melody. O wise, unknowable, and endless Creator, help us dwell respectfully in this, your amazing creation. May we share graciously, live kindly, and walk lightly in this fruitful world of yours. May we live as neighbors with all humanity, sharing generously the wealth of the waters and the land. Be with us this day in our strengths and our weaknesses, in our joys and our worries, in our visions and our hopes. This we pray in the words our friend and guide, Christ, taught us. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day we are assured with these words. We live in a world that has turned in God's hands for uncountable years. Through seasons of chaos and seasons of calm, God has been with us always. In that calm assurance, we take our peace. Amen. And since for the children's time we don't have a lot of children in the sanctuary, I have asked my child to join me here at the front. So, Beth, do you have a favorite Bible story?
You know, that's a hard one. There are tons of stories, and I don't think I can choose. No, I don't think I do.
Okay.
Do you?
I do. I have a couple, actually. So one is the story of Joseph's coat of many colors, probably because it mentions fabric.
Yep. And the great songs that were written for the musical. If anybody knows that.
Yes.
Remember how the youth group used to sing them downstairs in the kitchen when we were doing dishes?
Mm-hmm, yes, for Linker lunch.
Yeah.
Great times, right?
Yes.
Yes. So the other one is the story of creation.
Yes.
How in the beginning the earth was a formless void and darkness moved upon the face of the deep. And God said,
"Let there be light."
And there was light. Yes. I've always loved envisioning the way that progression took place as the land and the water separated and new things evolved.
Yeah, what an incredible experience that must have been.
Yes. God must have been so excited to watch this new creation develop.
Well, it does say in the Bible that God said it was good.
Well, yes, true, but I think that's such an understatement. I mean, I bet God was just absolutely like over the moon. The mood was there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he would have been over that, right?
Yes.
And I'll bet he was just dancing and shouting and...
He probably said something like, "Everybody, look what I made."
Yes. I know how excited I get when I take a pile of scraps to the sewing machine and I start making something pretty. I just get this funny feeling in my chest.
Yeah, my friend Erin says that she often feels the same way. She's filled with wonder when she goes to put colors together on paper or create something new and beautiful.
Exactly. Or when a knitter like you
picks up a ball of yarn and starts to make something.
Seeing a scarf or a sweater, right? Or when Mike Ivany puts a lump of wet clay on the wheel and feels a bowl or a mug growing in his hands.
Or when we go to the theater, or used to.
Or watch a movie and the curtain rises on a magical world that someone has created.
Or when a piano hits that first single note and we wait to hear what maybe, just maybe, it sounded like after God said, now what am I going to do with this?
Good morning. This morning's scripture reading is from the book of Genesis, starting chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth was a formless void, and darkness covered the face of the deep, while a wind from God swept over the face of the waters. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. And God said, "Let there be a dome in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters." So God made the dome and separated the waters that were under the dome from the waters that were above the dome, and it was so. God called the dome sky, and there was evening, and there was morning, the second day. And God said, "Let the waters under the sky be gathered together in one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. God called the dry land earth, and the waters that were gathered together he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let the earth put forth vegetation, plants yielding seed, and fruit trees of every kind on earth that bear fruit with the seed in it." And it was so. The earth brought forth vegetation, plants yielding seed of every kind, and trees of every kind bearing fruit with seed in it. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the third day. And God said, "Let there be lights in the dome of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years, and let them be lights in the dome of the sky to give light upon the earth." And it was so. God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night, and the stars. God set them in the dome of the sky to give light upon the earth, to rule over the day and over the night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the fourth day. And God said, "Let the waters bring forth swarms of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the dome of the sky." So God created the great sea monsters and every living creature that moves of every kind with which the waters swarm, and every winged bird of every kind. And God saw that it was good. God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters and the seas, and let birds multiply on the earth." And there was evening, and there was morning, the fifth day. And God said, "Let the earth bring forth living creatures of every kind, cattle and creeping things, and wild animals of the earth of every kind." And it was so. God made the wild animals of the earth of every kind, and the cattle of every kind, and everything that creeps upon the ground of every kind. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let us make humankind in our image, according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the wild animals of the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth." So God created humankind in his image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them. God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth." God said, "See, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food. And to every beast of the earth, and to every bird in the air, and to everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has the breath of life, I have given every green plant for food." And it was so. God saw everything that he had made, and indeed it was very good. And there was evening and there was morning, the sixth day. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all their multitude. And on the seventh day God finished the work that he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all the work that he had done. So God blessed the seventh day and hallowed it, because on it God rested from all the work that he had done in creation. These words are offered as wisdom for our journey. Let us walk together in their truth.
So, a quick quiz. What really important, world-changing events happened on September 21st in the year 4004 BCE at 6 p.m. in the evening? Nobody remembers? The answer is everything. Absolutely everything that exists, because earth, water, sky, sea, molecules, muons, quarks, trees, rocks, you name it. All of this here popped into being at 6 p.m. on September 21st, 4004 BCE. Because that's the date and time God looked around and at the great primordial chaos that was all that existed and started in on 6 days of non-stop work to sort out the universe and get everything in smooth running order. That's a good job. Including the fact that we would eventually be gathered here today in this place. Well, at least that's what James Ussher, the Irish Archbishop and renowned scholar, worked out in 1651 as a probable moment when God had started creation, pinning it down to 6,025 years ago from last Monday evening, to be precise. And today just happens to be the 6,025th anniversary of the sixth and final day of creation when everything was finally completed. Of course, he was wrong. I mean, like really, really, really wrong. like 3.8 billion years wrong. But, so it's easy to laugh at him and his 6 p.m. date for creation. And especially we laugh because today there are still people who desperately try and hang on to that 4,000 years as being when everything started, because the Bible has to be absolutely right no matter what, and it can't be like symbolic or anything. But for his time and place, it was a meticulous piece of scientific research. Now, he wasn't the only one who was trying to figure out, okay, when did God do all this? When did everything start? Because there's something powerful about knowing that. Others had come up with similar answers to his age, ranging from 3,700 years to 55,500 years BCE. But James's date became the commonly accepted one. As a Protestant bishop, he was an Irish bishop of the Anglican Church. He wanted to show the rival Catholic Church that Protestant scholarship was better than theirs. So he very carefully and very meticulously researched a date for creation that could stand up to any intellectual challenge from them. How did he do it? Well, he started, of course, with the Bible, which everyone in Europe accepted at that point as absolutely accurate. The Old Testament lists, very conveniently, the names and ages of the first 21 generations of people who came after Adam and Eve. You just add up who was born when, etc., and you get 3,442 years from when God made Adam and Eve. The tricky part is, after the Bible gets to that point, it gets real vague on details and dates and times, okay? It's pretty tricky. However, he was a very famous scholar, and he actually ended up, when he died, he left a library of 10,000 books in 1651. And in an ancient document from Greece, he managed to find the list of the Persian kings, which, because in the Bible it sort of goes right up to when the temple was first destroyed by King Nebuchadnezzar. So he finally found when King Nebuchadnezzar was born, traced it back, connected it back to Greek and Roman history, and came up with, so he had died in 562 BC. So you take the 562 years plus the 3,442 years you already know, and bingo, you've got 4004 BCE for when God made everything. Now, because New Testament evidence in there says that Jesus was born around 4 BCE, this actually makes a nice even 4,000 years from when God made the world to Jesus was being born, 4 millennium. After all, the Bible also says, with God, 1,000 years is as a day. So it is presumed that God, being a good craftsman and builder, liked working in nice, even numbers. Why September the 21st? Because when Adam and Eve found themselves in the Garden of Eden, the fruit was ripe and delicious, meaning it was the fall of the year. So that God, when God made the world, God went poof, and everything, the plants were there with the fruit and everything, all in autumn, ready to have seeds for the next year. That's how things were going to continue. Corroborating this idea was that the Jewish calendar starts, not with January like ours does, but with the autumn equinox, which is right at the September 21st usually. And being God's chosen people, obviously he would have given them the right calendar. And why 6 p.m. in the evening? No. Because a Jewish day begins at sunset. For a Jewish day, ours starts at midnight, right? But for them, you start a day with 12 hours of darkness followed by 12 hours of light. And on the autumn equinox, the sunset is 6 p.m. And so there we have it. Which actually also works conveniently when you think that on the first day, what did God do? Separated light from dark. So he started off with 12 hours of darkness, and then by noon, there we have the first sunrise comes up and the world begins. So it all fits together perfectly. And so he carefully untangled a huge mishmash of information and from it combed out a comforting piece of knowledge, that time when everything that God made started. Of course, he was totally mistaken. But nonetheless, there's still something powerful about thinking of God, standing in the darkness, separating light from dark, and looking out over this and saying, okay, now what am I going to do with all this? And then working from Monday through to Friday to actually do it. Because we often have to deal with chaos and tangles in our lives. I mean, just because God finished creation in 6 days, we still have to continue creating. The ancient and it takes us back to the ancient creation stories like we have in Genesis, which actually goes way, way back. We suspect that actually it may well, I mean, it probably comes back from like well beyond recorded history could be well be into 10, 15,000 years ago, back actually into the Ice Ages, when, because that's when everything was flooding at that point over from about 20,000 BCE to about 10,000 BC, there was huge major floodings and rising and land was being lost. And it was a very scary time because there was just this constant water that was coming out of nowhere. But the ancient creation stories, like we have in Genesis, basically say, this is how things were, and this is how things got fixed. We have basically three creation stories in the Bible. We have Genesis chapter 1, which Derek just read. We have Genesis 2, which is the story of Adam and Eve, so that's about the creation of people. We also have the story of the flood, Noah and the flood, which also probably is memories from way back and when as well. And I'm also thinking today of the indigenous creation story from our own local area. There's many variations, but basically the story is that Sky Woman, a pregnant woman who lives up in the sky, falls through a hole in the sky and falls and falls and falls until she lands on this huge mass of water, which is all that Earth is at that point, where a turtle takes her up on his back and lets her rest. Various animals try diving down to the bottom of the water to bring back mud, but none succeed. Until finally Otter goes down. And after a long time, when they think he's never coming back, it's not going to work, he's gone, he pops back up with a paw full of mud that he puts on Turtle's back. And that mud grows and spreads and becomes all of the land that we know. Which is why North America is traditionally called Turtle Island. And some, in fact, say it all started from Manitoulin Island, just over here. So these stories are passed on, like the creation story, which has, again, come for so many thousands of years, are passed on because they give something to us. And the gift that a creation story gives is basically the gift of knowing that things can change, that you can create things. When you are in a situation and you don't think things can change and you aren't aware that they can, then it never occurs to you. But once you know that things can change, then there's always a possibility you can go, I don't like that. What can I do about it? And that's when our human creativity comes in. There's a lot of discussion in archaeological circles and stuff over when exactly people started becoming, what makes us so human, so different, so able to accomplish so much and be such builders and tool makers. I mean, was it when we first got opposable thumbs? Was it when we stood upright? Was it when we learned how to talk and communicate and concepts? I mean, what was it? And I figure one of the things was when we learned to be creative, when we learned to take a rock and to start doing something with it, and then shaping it so that it does. Because even now, I mean, our whole world is built of creation. I mean, the ground was kind of cold and wet to damp on, so we just made pews. We made roofs to put us in, whether it's clothes and everything else. Our whole society has built of things that we have created. So I'd like to take you now to my weaving studio, because when we create things, of course, we come out of chaos. And the question is, how do we deal with chaos when we come to it? Because, I mean, we have to deal with it a lot. So we could go here. Hi, welcome to the weaving studio. I brought you here to talk about chaos and how order comes out of chaos and how that can be very tricky. So here we have a loom, and we have what looks like a huge tangle of messy threads, of total chaos, which it is. So this is a warp which one of my weavers put on, where good intention. To me, one of the first things you need to do is to stop, look, and find a calm, quiet place. Oh. Okay, so to add... It's chaos. Okay, so just as an example. Okay, so one of the first things you do when chaos comes along is you carry on bravely with whatever resources you have, which is my little script here, and that's it. Okay, actually this reminds me of when my brother, he was giving a talk on dental surgery, and he'd flown down to California to give this talk, and when he got there, he realized he had not brought the presentation for the slides, and he could not get it back, right? And so he presented this huge thing talking about implants or whatever it was, saying, well, this, if you could see it, this is a picture that you would have seen, right? And you would have seen exactly how the enamel here, right? And he did the whole thing with an imaginary pictures. So we're going to go on that today. So what I was showing you there was a warp, which is basically about 300 or 400 threads all in a huge tangle. And it was a warp that one of my weavers went to put on the loom. So in weaving, you begin by taking 300, 400 threads, rolling them on nice and evenly and all organized on the back, and then setting up and then bringing it back and weaving whatever you're happening to weave. In this case, it was a set of tea towels, a set of, placemats actually. But when she went to put it on, well, a couple of things didn't go quite right. And then a couple more things didn't go quite right. And then she found that she had made some major mistakes and put on like 200 extra threads, which shouldn't have been there, which would have made like a placemat this wide. And then so we had to take those off. But then we've also found that there was missing a couple of threads. So we had to get a couple of these color in here and go in here. And it ended up just getting so messy and so chaotic when she was putting it on that she kind of just gave up and threw up her hair and basically decided, you know, enough, we're just going to throw it out. But in weaving, and when you have the skills that have been passed on, I mean, when you approach chaos, you think, okay, what can we do? So what we do is the first thing you do when you're dealing with chaos is to stop, look, and find a calm place where you can look and see, okay, what's going on? What are the trends here? What's happening? And you don't always know. You can't know everything because, I mean, you've got 300 threads and they're intertwined and like this. But you find that, and basically we're doing what God did, which is separate the light from the darkness. Get a sense of what's happening. What's missing that isn't there, what's needed that should be there, and think, okay, now what can I do with what I've got here? In weaving, that quiet point where you take a huge warp which looks really messy is what we call the cross, which is very appropriate for this being a church and all. But basically the cross is 2 sticks, okay, and they go like this, and the warp, each warp thread passes over here and under, or this way and over. Over this way, or under here. And those 2 simple sticks then keep that whole warp of 300, 400, 1,000 threads in order. Because once a stick thread is going through here, its neighbor prevents it from skipping over and playing with somebody else. And okay, so as you get this tangled mess, as it comes up to where the sticks are going through, you basically have to, it takes it out and sorts it. So when it comes out the other side of this very simple thing you wouldn't even pay attention to, it makes it all nice and orderly, and then from there it can be wrapped around the roller in nice, neat layers, and you can use it. In a sense, this is ancient wisdom. Weavers have used simple sticks like this for 10 or 15,000 years. They look like nothing particularly interesting, nothing useful, but they are at the heart of making sense of the warp. And let us work with the warp so it can weave cloth. In that sense, they're kind of like the ancient creation stories, or the scriptures and wisdom we hear at church, or they're like the handy advice we get from parents or relatives or teachers. They're all stories and advice that seep into our memories through our lives, that we've learned from ourselves and we learned from others, that help us make sense of life in good times and bad, and tells us what others did in various situations and how it worked out. They're like the things that are kicking around the house, outdated and useless, that have always been kind of there that you forget about, until one day you go, oh, that could be useful. I could use that lampshade, whatever. So the least sticks provide clarity. They let us make sense of the warp. But they really work best when teamed up with the second important thing weavers know, and this is where I would then show you where you take a warp, which is there, and you pull it. You give it tension. Because the second thing that weavers have known for thousands and thousands of years and pass on to each other is that when you have a huge mess of threads, they like tension. So when you take it and pull things, you can just kind of flick it and move it, and suddenly all this chaos kind of straightens out. And just the pressure on that kind of shows you, this thread's here, this is there. Pulling the thread warp, that tension, pulling the warp thread sites really helps us see what's going on. Mistakes show up more clearly, errors can be corrected, and where needed, excess threads can be removed and missing threads added because it lets you count exactly what's there. It tells you you've got 6 of blue and 4 of yellow. To me, that pulling tight of things to see what's really going on is also like the honesty and pressure we often need to put on those in power by clearly and repeatedly pointing out things that are happening that shouldn't be. So when the chaos is being controlled and perpetuated and whatever by those in power, we need to put a little pressure on them, right? Not enough to break things, but just enough to say, you know what, that's not good. That's causing suffering here. And encouraging to make the change happen, to help sort out the chaos that they are part of and that we can be part of. So then I show the original warp that she was making. And so you get this huge long thing, and there's like a stream of threads kind of coming off here of about 200 threads, which are the threads that had to be taken off. And then there's a couple more that are coming in, and you can actually see the threads going on. And from here, we get our third piece of ancient wisdom, a comb. And it's just a little, very rough comb. It's about this big. It's what actually we use for, you can use in, for horses, for combing their manes. It's a rough metal comb. And you take the threads, and you hold it in your hand, and you pull tight. And the first thing you do is where the least sticks are, there's a little bit of clear, orderly space. So with all this big mess here, you take the least sticks and you just comb like this. Okay, and you're pulling it tight, and that combing just clears the chaos from near the least sticks back about this much. And then in this particular case, I would push the beater back, and so I'd have a little bit of space here, and I step back. And again, so I take it from here, and so I have a little bit of clean here, huge bit of mess, and here. And when you're combing, you don't go from the clean and just keep bashing into here, because that doesn't work. Okay? Because what happens is it just jams it together. What you have to do is get behind the chaos. Come in from the edges. And so you start here, and so I'll comb a little bit here. Only put this much. And any mess I go here, and this mess I ignore. And that's the other important thing when you're dealing with chaos. You clean what you can, but there's where the rest you just kind of leave aside. So I comb a little bit. And as I comb it, this starts cleaning up. And I go farther, and I catch a little more, and move that chaos over, and I take this, and I move it to here. And eventually, I end up with this, nice and clean and beautiful. So again, what you do is you take what you can handle. We can't solve the whole world at once, just like you can't clean a whole warp at once. You have to take it in little sections with whatever you can manage. And the other thing that I would also be showing you at this point is that when I'm cleaning here, these threads here that I'm not touching are actually slowly cleaning out. And so I'm looking here, but these are kind of, oh, yep, they get sucked in and they get pulled in, and so it cleans up. And that tells me that's often that when we come up, what we do when we start cleaning up a tangle in our lives is that it has repercussions elsewhere. So that kindness that we do, that we share to somebody, can get passed on to somebody else. That our doing something also shows others, we can do that. So that the kindness and patience and all that stuff that you do need when you're cleaning up tangles spreads. And so remember that first pawful of mud that Otter brought back from the depths with such effort? Well, that one little pawful that landed spreads. And it spreads on turtle, and then it spreads farther and farther and farther. And now it spreads all the way from the Pacific Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean to the north, to all of North America. So that kind of thing to me is also like what we do these days by keeping St. Andrews going. I mean, it's been kind of a tangly time, let's face it, for the last few years between the belfry and staff changes and just getting on with life and being isolated and everything that COVID has done for us. And sometimes it can feel like a lot of work. But the importance of St. Andrews is it's a place of calm in a busy world. It's a place where you can come, we can take a breath, get reminded of the bigger picture of things, and sort out some of the tangles we have. It's also a place that is easy to walk by, not bother coming in. And yet, I've been here 30-odd years now, and whenever there is a major disaster, when 9/11 hit 20 years ago, or there was a shooting at the Pulse Gay nightclub in Florida, or the shooting of the women in the Polytechnic in Montreal, on those times, people came to the church, and we gathered here. Because this was a place of calm, a place of a bigger sense than what we are, where we can find support and grieve together, where there's comfort. And that's there, and for people who would normally not say it's particularly part of their lives, and yet it can be. And again, that's like the spreading mud. So once that's been done, then you would then see the last and final clip, which is where, after having combed all the various sections of the warp and gotten it ready, we then go around to the back and we roll it on. And we take it and it goes around the roller, and we get another layer of nice, neat warp going on there. And we start again, because it's a 10.5-yard warp. And we can do a couple of feet at a time, and we clean it out, and a couple of feet at a time, and we clean it out. And that's the thing with the tangles in our world. Change does happen. I'm thinking in my life, when I was 13, it actually became legal, or rather it was no longer illegal. We were no longer thrown in jail for homosexual activity, for being gay or being lesbian. When I was 13, which isn't that long ago, really. 69. So that was a huge tangle, which has affected so many people. So that was when it first became legal I wouldn't be thrown in jail for it. Now, and through the years that I've been around, there's been various advocacy that I've been part of as well, where we protest in front of Mike Harris' office, or there's been discussions, petitions, and things. I mean, we had the whole thing with the United Church in 1988, whether could a gay person actually be allowed to stand here in the pulpit? Not sure about that. Things have changed. So the tangling changes. I mean, right now there's a lot more awareness of Black Matters and all of those kind of things where, problems aren't solved yet and there's still lots of issues, but it's been shifting. There's changing happening. Same thing with Indigenous awareness. And it's more and more, there's an awareness how much that was there that we just ignored and said was nothing and pretended, they're not real people. It doesn't matter. But it does. It always did, and it should have, and it was stuff that should never have happened. But that slow untangling that we are part of is has been going on and will continue. And the trouble is, of course, that just as we get one tangle sorted out, somebody somewhere else around the world decides, oh no, we have to tangle things up again. And so we have Afghanistan, we have with the Taliban, we have Russia, and we have Hong Kong and China and all various things. But all the time, there's still people untangling. And that's kind of the wonder of creation, that even though things get messy, we still keep untangling. Thank you.
Before I go any farther in the service, I want to thank Ralph for that wonderful reflection, carried on despite the lack of technology. Not only did he prepare that reflection, but he also wrote all of the liturgy for this service. Like, this is really Ralph's service. So thank you so much, Ralph. Thank you so much. Each week, we thank God for the many ways we have been so richly blessed. And each week, we are given the opportunity to share those blessings with others. St. Andrew's is grateful for your financial support through PAR, e-transfers, mailbox drops, and worship offerings. It is only through that support that this community of faith is able to continue God's work in the world. For the gift of creation, the gift of your love, and the gift of the Spirit by which we live, we thank you and give you the fruit of our hands. May your grace be proclaimed by the gifts that we give. Generous God, we ask you to bless these gifts now offered and the hands that brought them. May they be enhanced to carry out your mission among all your people. Amen. And I welcome our friend Kim Robinson.
Let us pray. Creator, Great Spirit, today and every day is a day to honor the children who have survived the residential schools. We remember also and honor the children who did not survive. The losses are unbelievably high and widespread across this country. Villages and communities that were emptied of their children, the knowledge keepers, the mums and the dads, the grandmas and the grandpas, the aunties and the uncles, with no children to share their culture, their stories, their language, their love, and their hugs. Brokenness and oppression and death. Great Spirit, where do we go from here? Where is the hope? The hope is in the acknowledgement and the awareness of the tragedies and all the people touched by this painful history. There is hope in listening to the survivors and their stories that have crossed many generations. Creator, help us to understand the voices, the stories, and experiences of First Nation, Inuit, and Métis people. Great Spirit, open our hearts to supporting Indigenous folk who revitalize their language and their culture as they reclaim and learn how to strengthen and heal the family ties in their communities. Great Spirit, be patient with us as we grapple with all that is before us. Help us to walk gently on Mother Earth and to learn with the wisdom of elders that we may seek justice and healing for the trauma faced and the separation that for some is permanent. We know we are not alone, that you, Creator God, are with us as we seek peace and grace and truth on this journey we embark on with our Indigenous brothers and sisters. Creator, help us to respect the gifts of Mother Earth and the gifts of water. Open our hearts to protect and provide for all the children of this earth. May the sun bring us energy and the moon bring us rest. May the rain wash away the tears and nourish our Mother Earth. Water is the lifeblood of Mother Earth. Water is the lifeblood of our bodies. Chimigwech Nibi. In my teachings, the sweetgrass braid is a medicine that, when lit, helps us when we feel a deep loss of those who have crossed into spirit. It allows us to see the smoke as it rises to the Creator and allows us to hold our memories in our hearts and allows the spirit of the ancestors to soar. So today I'm going to drum. Great Spirit, it is a day to honor those children who became ancestors before their time. In my understanding and my teachings, they are those with who we sing with gratitude and drum as a part of our relations in spirit. Miigwechkaniga nibwaka Miigwechkaniga nibwaka Jemanado iwiji dekan Gani gani wa Gani gani wa ya hey yo ya hey yo Miigwechkaniga nibwaka Miigwechkaniga nibwaka Jemanado iwiji dekan Gani gani wa Gani gani wa Way ahe Miigwech kaniga nibwakan. Miigwech kaniga nibwakan. Shemanado iwiji dekan. Gani gani wa. Gani gani wa. Weahe, yahe yo. Weahe, yahe yo. Miigwech kaniga nibwagan. Miigwech kaniga nibwagan. Jemanado iwiji dekan. Gani gani wa. Gani gani wa. Weahe, yahe yo. Weahe, yahe yo. Ganagana miigwech.
Hymn 352, Lord of the Dance. Before we send each other off with a blessing, I would just like to remind you that next week we will celebrate Worldwide Communion Sunday. I invite you to join us then when we share in the Blessed Sacrament of Communion at this table where all are welcome. Please join me in the sending forth. Let us go forth into this good week, remembering that in the beginning, God created not only the universe, but imbued us each with our own spark of the original creation to keep the world going, creating the world as it needs to be. As we go our many ways, let us be a blessing to those we meet. Amen.